Scientists found this in a swamp, but it shouldn't exist. A human body, more than 2,300 years old, remains so well preserved it looks as if it sank into the mud just yesterday. This is not an Egyptian mummy hidden inside a distant pyramid, nor a legend exaggerated over time. It is a real discovery, unearthed in the cold heart of Denmark. What's strange is that at first, no one believed it was an ancient relic. People assumed it was simply a missing person from the 19th century, something ordinary, nothing remarkable. But the truth that followed left the scientific community in stunned silence. A mystery buried for over 2 millennia had suddenly been awakened. And even today, no one can say for certain, was this man the victim of an ancient ritual or the casualty of a brutal murder hidden beneath the bog over time? Welcome to the Ancient History Channel. If you're fascinated by mysterious stories, unsolved secrets, and discoveries that leave the world questioning everything, then today we're diving into one of the most chilling cases ever found beneath European soil. A mummy carrying countless secrets from thousands of years ago. The story begins on April 26, 1952, in the village of Growal, Denmark. At the time, a group of workers was digging in a bog, dark, damp land that seemed completely unremarkable. But after just a few shovelfuls, they struck something entirely unexpected. Not stone, not wood, but a human body. Yes, you heard that right. A fully intact body, not just bones like we usually find. And that alone was enough to leave everyone in shock. The body was astonishingly well preserved. The skin was still visible, facial features remained recognizable, and hair still clung to the scalp, as if time itself had forgotten this place. At first, locals believed it might be the body of a man named Red Christia, who had gone missing around 1887 and was thought to have drowned in the bog. Given how fresh the body appeared, the theory seemed reasonable. But then scientists stepped in, and every initial assumption quickly collapsed. Through scientific analysis, they determined that the body did not date to the 19th century. It was over 2,300 years old. This meant the man had lived in the pre-Common Era period, a time when Europe was still deeply rooted in mysterious tribal rituals. For the sake of research, scientists named him the Growal man, after the place where he was found. From there, a strange portrait began to emerge. The Growal man was about 30 years old at the time of his death. He had reddish hair, about 2 inches long, and stood approximately 5 feet 9 inches tall. Interestingly, his hands and feet showed no signs of heavy labor, leading researchers to question his role in ancient society. If he wasn't a farmer, then who was he? He is believed to have lived sometime between 310 and 55 BCE, a period when European tribes practiced various rituals and belief systems that were never clearly recorded. Looking deeper into his body, scientists analyzed the contents of his stomach and discovered that his last meal consisted of grain porridge, herbs, and various seeds. But what truly disturbed them was the presence of toxic fungus. This was no coincidence. Such substances have been documented in ancient rituals, where individuals were placed into altered states or offered as sacrifices to the gods. However, the external condition of the body revealed an even more horrifying truth. There were multiple injuries, the most severe being a deep cut stretching from the throat to the ear, a fatal wound that clearly caused his death. And that wasn't all. His body was also missing 4 lumbar vertebrae, as if it had been deliberately altered after death. These details made the story of the Growal man's death darker than ever. At this point, the biggest question remains: what really happened to him? There are many theories. Some researchers believe he was the victim of an ancient sacrificial ritual, offered to the gods to ensure good harvests or ward off disaster. Others argue it may have been a brutal murder, with the body thrown into the oxygen-poor bog to conceal the crime, incidentally preserving it almost perfectly over time. But these are still just theories. To this day, there is no definitive evidence strong enough to confirm any single explanation. No written records, no witnesses. Only a silent body that has lain there for more than 2,000 years. And so, the mystery of the Growal man remains unsolved. Was he a sacred offering, a figure in some forgotten ritual, or simply an unfortunate victim of prehistoric violence? What do you think the final answer is? Share your thoughts below. Because who knows, your perspective might just open the door to a new way of understanding this ancient mystery. 300-year-old mummy in China, a perfect body that changed strangely, just hours after the coffin was opened. You know, there are archaeological discoveries that amaze people at first glance, but there are also cases that become more unsettling the longer you look. And the story from Xiangcheng, Henan Province, China, is one of those examples. This discovery took place recently when Chinese archaeologists conducted an excavation in a central region of the country. During the dig, they uncovered 3 ancient bodies. However, what drew the team's special attention was one particular body, a corpse that had been preserved in an almost perfect state for about 300 years. Based on initial assessments, this was the body of a man who lived during the Qing dynasty, approximately 1644 to 1912. The clothing still remaining on the body suggested that he may have been a high-ranking official, someone of status in society at that time. But what made this mummy truly remarkable was not just his identity, it was what happened immediately after the coffin was opened. At first, when the lid was lifted, the face of the body appeared almost normal. There were no clear signs of decomposition, and the skin still retained the structure of someone who had died not long ago. Just imagine a body that had lain undisturbed for 300 years, yet still looked like that. It's enough to send chills down your spine. But what followed was even more disturbing. Within just a few hours of exposure to the air, everything about the body began to change. The skin on the face gradually turned dark, a foul odor started to spread, and the process quickly extended to the rest of the body. In a very short time, the initially perfect corpse visibly deteriorated, as if time had been compressed and then suddenly released all at once. This phenomenon led scientists to ask, what allowed this body to remain so well preserved for centuries, and why did it deteriorate so rapidly once exposed to the outside environment? To answer this, archaeologist Dr. Lucas Nickel suggested that ancient people may have used a highly specialized preservation method. The body was placed inside a large, sturdy coffin, sealed tightly with lacquer, and notably covered with a layer of charcoal. This charcoal layer likely acted as a natural barrier, preventing bacteria from entering and keeping the internal environment almost completely isolated from the outside world. As a result, the body did not decompose in the usual way. However, it was precisely this perfect isolation that caused the rapid change. Once the coffin was opened, the body was immediately exposed to air, bacteria, and humidity, triggering a swift deterioration process within just a few hours. To support this explanation, Dr. Lucas Nickel also pointed to another similar case discovered in China. But to explore that case, we need to go back to 2011 in Jiangsu Province, China. At that time, archaeologists uncovered another remarkably well-preserved body buried about 6.5 feet underground. Astonishingly, from head to toe, the body showed almost no signs of damage. The skin still had elasticity, and even the fingernails remained intact. Studies revealed that this was the body of a woman approximately 4 feet 11 inches tall, who lived during the Ming Dynasty, around 1368 to 1644. Calculations indicated that the mummy was nearly 700 years old and likely belonged to the noble class. Her remains were also found in an almost intact tomb and placed inside an extremely solid coffin. In fact, to examine what was inside, experts had to use a saw to cut through the coffin's outer layer because it was so hard. After conducting tests and analysis, the research team discovered that the hard outer coating surrounding the coffin was a mixture of materials, including glutinous rice, lime, sand, and egg whites. Based on this finding, they consulted ancient records and learned that during the Ming Dynasty, it was common to apply layers of mortar around coffins. With just a few layers, the coffin would become incredibly solid. This type of mortar was typically made from sand, paste, and lime, very similar to what scientists had identified. Thanks to this method, the body inside could remain almost perfectly preserved over time. Additionally, inside these coffins, substances such as lime powder, rush grass, and aromatic materials were often placed. These materials helped absorb moisture and prevent the body from decomposing. All of this reveals something fascinating. It wasn't only ancient Egypt that mastered body preservation. In ancient China, people also developed highly effective methods to preserve the dead, though their techniques were entirely different. And that raises an interesting question: what other secrets from the past are still waiting to be uncovered? 900-year-old castle beneath a prison yard. People often say that the earth never forgets what has happened upon it. Sometimes, all it takes is a single shovel strike for the past to rise back to the surface, so clearly that it leaves us stunned. And the story in Gloucester, England is a vivid example of that idea. It began when plans were being made to redevelop an old prison site. As part of the process, researchers conducted a routine survey of the land, just like any other project. There was nothing unusual at first, no warning signs, nothing to suggest what lay beneath. But as the first layers of soil were removed, ancient stones began to appear, and everything quickly exceeded expectations. An archaeological team from Cotswold Archaeology uncovered the wall of a tower belonging to a 12th century castle. These were not just scattered fragments, but clearly defined structures, enough to reconstruct the scale of what was once a royal-style complex. Just imagine, beneath the yard of a prison, a place associated with confinement and harsh realities, there once stood a powerful symbol of the medieval era. It sounds almost unbelievable, doesn't it? What made the discovery even more remarkable was the nearly 900 artifacts found at the site. From broken pieces of pottery to intact bone dice, these objects seem to whisper stories from nearly 900 years ago. These small items are key to understanding daily life inside the castle. What people ate, how they entertained themselves, and how they lived. A lost world is now gradually coming back into focus, piece by piece. According to Neil Holbrook, archaeologist and director of the company, he and his team could hardly hide their surprise. They knew there had once been a castle in the area, but had always believed it had been completely destroyed. What they discovered proved the opposite. History doesn't disappear. It simply lies hidden, waiting to be found. In fact, Gloucester once had not one but two medieval castles. The first was built to the east of what is now the prison site, and it was later replaced around the year 1110 by a stronger stone structure. Notably, the tower that was just discovered is comparable in size to one of the towers in the Tower of London complex. This suggests that the structure was not small. It may have played a significant role in its historical context. However, the castle's fate did not last forever. In 1787, it was completely demolished. The towering walls and once bustling spaces vanished from sight. Then, just a few years later, in 1791, Gloucester Prison began receiving its first inmates. From that point on, the remains of the castle were buried beneath the prison yard, fading into obscurity for more than 2 centuries. For over 200 years, countless footsteps passed across this ground, yet no one knew that beneath them lay a vast piece of history. On one side was the glorious past of the nobility. On the other, the harsh present of imprisoned lives. Two contrasting worlds coexisted on the same piece of land. Today, archaeologists say all of these findings will be carefully analyzed and preserved before redevelopment of the prison moves forward. But one thing is certain, from now on, every step taken across the yard of Gloucester Prison will feel different, because beneath it lies a silent, magnificent past waiting to be told. 1,000-year-old mummy beaten to death. You know, history has always been mysterious, so deeply marked by pain and unanswered questions that many events remain beyond explanation, especially deaths that occurred hundreds or even thousands of years ago. Some deaths are remembered for generations, while others are never told until science finally gives them a voice. This time, the story doesn't begin at a bloody crime scene, but with a mummy that lay silently in a museum for centuries. A young man who lived more than 1,000 years ago, seemingly forgotten, suddenly speaks, revealing the final moments of his life in a way no one expected. The story begins in a research facility at Bogenhausen Hospital, where experts examined an ancient mummy displayed at the Anatomical Museum in Marburg, Munich, Germany. At first glance, it appeared to be nothing more than a well-preserved body. But once modern technology came into play, everything began to change. The man was identified as belonging to the Arica culture, a civilization that once lived in what is now northern Chile. Based on the objects buried with him, researchers believe he was a member of a fishing community, a simple life tied to the sea and daily survival. But what caught the scientists' attention was not just where he came from, it was how he died. Using 3D CT scanning technology, a method that allows researchers to see inside the body without damaging the mummy, they began reconstructing every detail. From bone structure to signs of trauma, everything became clearly visible, and the picture that emerged was chilling. The man died at around 20 to 25 years old, with an estimated height of about 5 feet 8 inches. After death, He was buried in a squatting position, a burial style common in many ancient cultures. Some of his teeth remained intact, showing wear patterns typical of people who consumed corn over long periods. This further supported theories about his daily life. Then, the unusual details began to appear. His lungs showed signs of severe tuberculosis, a dangerous disease at the time. However, this illness was not the cause of death. So what actually ended his life? The answer lay in his skull and spine. Analysis revealed that he had suffered an extremely powerful blow to the head, enough to cause almost immediate death. But it didn't stop there. A deep stab wound in his back indicated that he was attacked again while either standing or kneeling. These injuries were not accidental, they were clear signs of violence. In other words, this was undeniably a homicide. Based on historical analysis, researchers believe the attack occurred sometime between 996 and 1147. The assailant may have been one or two individuals, and their actions were swift and decisive, leaving the victim no chance to defend himself. A brutal and terrifying act even after more than 1,000 years. 3,300-year-old coffin, carved with a human face. Some discoveries make people freeze for a few seconds, not because they're massive, but because every small detail hints at a story so deep it sends chills down your spine. And this time, in the sun-scorched land of Israel, archaeologists uncovered something that instantly sparks curiosity. A clay coffin dating back about 3,300 years with a lid sculpted into a human face. Yes, you heard that right. A coffin not only meant for burial, but one that bears the face of the deceased, as if they are still gazing back at the world from beyond death. Just thinking about it is enough to give you goosebumps. This coffin was discovered in the Jezreel Valley, a region known for its many overlapping layers of history. When researchers opened it, they found the skeleton of an adult inside. But what truly caught their attention were the objects buried alongside the body. Right next to the skeleton was a gold ring, and on that ring was not just any design. It bore the name of an ancient Egyptian pharaoh, Seti I, who ruled Egypt from 1290 to 1279 BCE, during a time when Egyptian power was expanding far beyond its traditional borders. Not only did the ring carry his name, but it was also associated with a gold seal engraved with a cobra, an iconic symbol of power in ancient Egyptian culture. Seals like this were typically used to stamp important documents, much like a signature of someone in authority. From these details, experts from the Israel Antiquities Authority concluded that the person buried here was certainly not of ordinary status. The findings suggest this was a wealthy individual, possibly someone who served in the Egyptian military or worked within the administration of that time. There is also another theory, that this individual may have originated from the region of Canaan, an area that includes present-day Lebanon, Israel, and Palestine, but served under the Egyptian Empire. Now think about that for a moment. A person living in Canaan, yet carrying clear marks of Egyptian power and influence. This points to a strong cultural and political exchange during that era. In fact, during the reign of Pharaoh Seti I, Egypt extended its influence deeply into Canaan, not just through territorial control, but by spreading its culture, beliefs, and customs. And this human-faced coffin is a perfect example. Such coffins were a distinctive burial tradition in ancient Egypt, typically reserved for individuals of high social status. The fact that someone in Canaan was buried in this style suggests not only wealth, but also a close connection to Egyptian civilization. They could have been an officer, an official, or perhaps a bridge between two cultures. But the story doesn't end there. The Jezreel Valley, where the coffin was found, has long been considered an archaeological treasure trove. Previously, researchers uncovered a cemetery dating back to the time of Seti I, along with a headless statue of Hercules, an unusual detail that seems to hint at even more mysteries waiting to be uncovered. When all these discoveries are put together, they form a much larger picture. This is not just a single burial. It may be part of an entire community deeply influenced by ancient Egypt. A coffin, a ring, a seal. They may sound simple, but they are enough to open the door to a story that spans thousands of years. Fascinating, isn't it? So next time you come across an ancient artifact, don't just look at its surface. Dig deeper into the story behind it, because hidden within it could be an entire life, a secret, and a piece of history waiting to be told. Mysterious drawings in a 500-year-old ancient book. An ancient book that seemed to have fallen silent long ago has suddenly begun to speak again, revealing a story that history may have deliberately tried to hide. It sounds unbelievable, doesn't it? But this is a completely true story, beginning with a manuscript over 500 years old known as the Codex Selden. This book originates from the region of Unearthed in the state of Oaxaca, once a major center of the ancient Mixtec civilization. Among the very few surviving manuscripts from this area, the Codex Selden is considered an extremely valuable living witness. For many years, researchers suspected that something was hidden beneath its pages. The problem was, no one dared to damage such a precious artifact to find out. And so, the secret remained there, right within reach, yet completely out of grasp. That is, until modern technology stepped in. Using hyperspectral imaging, a highly advanced see-through scanning technique, scientists were finally able to detect images hidden beneath the surface text. Without touching or peeling the pages apart, the details gradually came into view. According to Ludo Snyders, a member of the research team from Leiden University, the moment was so astonishing that he almost shouted in disbelief. What appeared were not faint sketches, but an entire system of imagery in a pre-colonial style, completely different from the upper layer of text, which clearly shows European influence. This discovery immediately changed previous assumptions. Before, it was believed that the manuscript had been created around 1560 after Spanish colonization began in the region. But now, it appears to be much older. Just think about it. One hidden layer of drawings could rewrite the entire timeline of a civilization. What makes the story even more fascinating is the content of these images. Although current technology can clearly reveal only red and yellow pigments, and much of the detail remains obscured by a layer of carbon, researchers have identified several recurring symbols. The most notable among them are images of a dagger and a rope. They may sound simple, but in an ancient cultural context, such symbols could carry deep meaning. Some theories suggest that the dagger and rope figure may represent an important individual in Mixtec society, possibly a priest, a leader, or even a king. However, it remains unclear whether these symbols refer to a single person or multiple individuals. In addition, the images depict around 20 figures, sitting and standing, all facing the same direction. Some are holding staffs or spears, and there are also depictions of women with red hair, a rare and intriguing detail. These scenes resemble a larger picture of society, where power, ritual, and daily life are closely intertwined. According to experts, this manuscript functions like a kind of chronicle, recording not only individuals, but also the geopolitical situation of the ancient Mixtec people. This means that if the entire content can be decoded, we may gain a much deeper understanding of how this civilization functioned, from systems of power and territory to social relationships. 3,000-year-old pyramid in the Amazon rainforest. People often think the Amazon rainforest is nothing more than dense vegetation, wild animals, and vast lands untouched by any major civilization. But sometimes, the most remote places hide secrets that force the world to rethink everything it once believed. A powerful example of this dates back to 1976, when a satellite image captured by NASA unexpectedly revealed a strange formation deep within the endless green of the Amazon. It wasn't a river or a natural hill. It was a series of triangular shapes that looked remarkably like pyramids, isolated and nearly impossible to reach by land. At first, many assumed these were natural formations, hills shaped by erosion over time into pyramid-like structures. But some researchers weren't convinced. They believed these formations, often referred to as the Paratoari pyramids, could be the remains of an ancient undocumented civilization. These suspicions gained more weight when expeditions into the Amazon uncovered numerous traces of ancient human activity: stone-paved paths, carved stonework, and the foundations of structures worn down by time. All of it suggested that people once lived here, possibly even a well-developed community. Then, in 2010, a discovery ignited even more debate. During an excavation on what was believed to be just another hill, a team of archaeologists noticed something unusual. The deeper they dug, the clearer it became that the structure was not natural at all. Eventually, they reached a stunning conclusion. It was not a hill. It was a massive pyramid, built more than 3,000 years ago. Yes, a pyramid in the middle of the Amazon. Unexpected, isn't it? But the discoveries didn't stop there. The surrounding area revealed even more intriguing details. Large structures were found nearby, possibly serving as residences or administrative centers for a ruling class. There were also walls nearly 6.5 feet high, seemingly built to protect the area from outside threats. Most curious of all were seashells scattered throughout the site. A strange finding, considering the region is nowhere near the ocean. This raises a series of questions. Where did these shells come from? What were they used for? Decoration? Currency? Or perhaps something tied to ritual practices? Before any clear answers could emerge, researchers made another discovery about 1 mile from the main pyramid, a similar structure. Inside they found the remains of 22 children, a number chilling enough to unsettle anyone. This led to several theories, the most notable being that the site may have been used for sacrificial rituals. The children may have been offered as part of religious ceremonies. Some researchers even draw comparisons to the rituals of the Inca civilization, which was known for its sacrificial practices. If that is true, then this is no longer just an archaeological discovery. It becomes a portrait of a civilization with structure, belief systems, and complex rituals, one that ultimately vanished under mysterious circumstances. So what could have caused an entire civilization to disappear deep within the jungle without leaving clear traces? War? Natural disasters? Or could their own extreme rituals have contributed to their downfall? Even today, no one can say for certain. Everything remains speculation. And those structures, the silent pyramids hidden in the rainforest, continue to guard their secrets. 150 mysterious objects from 1.4 million-year-old early humans. During an excavation at the Ubaydiyah site in northern Israel, one of the oldest locations linked to human presence outside of Africa, archaeologists made a startling discovery: 150 limestone objects shaped into nearly perfect spheres, believed to date back about 1.4 million years. These are not natural stones. They were intentionally shaped, remarkably round, with a level of symmetry that humans would not begin to seriously explore in art or geometry until millions of years later. This raises a fundamental question: who made them and why? According to experts, the creators of these objects were likely Homo erectus, also known as upright man. This species is an ancient ancestor of modern humans, with a form that was part human, part ape, still quite primitive in appearance, but already capable of walking upright and using basic tools. However, the existence of these perfectly shaped spheres challenges everything we thought we knew about the technical skill and cognitive ability of early humans. Dr. Antoine Muller of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem explains that researchers are still actively debating their purpose. Some believe these stones were tools used to break larger rocks, suggesting a practical function. Others suspect they may represent an early expression of aesthetic thinking, or even a form of proto-art. What confuses archaeologists the most is the time period itself. Around 1.4 million years ago, humans were believed to be in a very primitive stage. According to traditional theories, early humans could only create sharp stone flakes for cutting, not complex geometric shapes like perfectly rounded spheres. So what does this mean? Could Homo erectus have evolved faster than we previously thought? Or could this be evidence of a cognitive development path that has never been fully recognized? There is also the possibility that these early humans created the spheres unintentionally, through repeated experimentation, without fully understanding what they were doing. But regardless of the explanation, the stone spheres of Ubaydiyah remain an unsolved mystery, a distant message from humanity's deep past. In an age where science seems capable of explaining almost everything, the existence of these 1.4 million-year-old objects serves as a powerful reminder. There is still so much about our ancestors that the modern world has yet to understand. The eerie blood jade that left experts pale. Archaeology may seem like a straightforward field, but it is filled with hidden dangers. Tombs of ancient emperors and nobles were often built with secret mechanisms designed to prevent intrusion, so entering them is rarely without risk. Objectively speaking, archaeology is a demanding profession. It requires both deep historical knowledge and exceptional courage. In general, archaeologists are accustomed to strange and unusual discoveries. However, there are always exceptions. One such case involves a piece of blood jade discovered in an ancient tomb in Mao Mountain, China. a find so unsettling that even seasoned archaeologists, seemingly fearless in the face of danger, broke into cold sweats. The discovery of this blood jade was entirely accidental. In 1980, a farmer in Mao Mountain, Jiangsu Province, China, was digging his field when he unexpectedly uncovered an ancient tomb. He immediately reported it to local authorities, and archaeologists were soon called in to conduct a formal excavation. According to experts, the tomb at Mao Mountain was relatively simple in structure and modest in size. It contained several artifacts, but nothing particularly rare or extraordinary at first glance. However, as the excavation was nearing completion, one member of the team noticed an unusual red object. After carefully removing the surrounding dirt, they revealed a smooth, round jade pendant, reddish in color and about the size of an egg. This discovery sparked immediate curiosity. Who did it belong to, and where did it come from? After a period of research and consultation of historical records, experts confirmed that it was a piece of blood jade, a rare and highly valued material in ancient Chinese feudal society. In Chinese history, blood jade was considered extremely special, reserved only for the wealthy, the nobility, and the royal family. It was not just a symbol of status and wealth, but also believed to be a protective talisman, bringing peace, luck, and safety to its owner. Wealthy individuals and officials often carried jade pendants to ward off evil spirits and protect themselves from danger. However, blood jade followed a very unusual rule. It was meant only for the dead. According to tradition, after a person passed away, their family would place a jade piece into the mouth of the deceased. Over time, the jade would gradually turn red, resembling blood. In folk belief, anyone who dared to remove blood jade from a corpse would face severe misfortune and disasters, possibly even death. In Taoist legends, blood jade was also regarded as a powerful ritual object capable of exorcising evil, and only highly skilled practitioners were believed to be able to use it. This is why blood jade was always carefully protected and typically found only in the tombs of high-status individuals. Despite the many myths surrounding blood jade, stories of supernatural power and spiritual danger, modern science has yet to confirm whether any of these believed effects are real. Even so, this discovery has drawn significant attention from archaeologists and historians. It is not only a rare artifact, but also a reflection of the deep beliefs, customs, and spiritual traditions of ancient people. The blood jade found in the Mao Mountain tomb stands as a vivid testament to the intersection of history, culture, and mythology within a great civilization. Stones that can reproduce and move on their own. At some point, many of us have heard myths about magical stones, rocks that can grow, move, and even reproduce like living creatures. As unbelievable as it sounds, those legends are actually rooted in real phenomena. In the small town of Gloucester, there exists a truly unusual geological occurrence: stones that literally grow. These potato-shaped rocks have long sparked curiosity among local residents. Researchers believe these unusually spherical stones were formed by intense and prolonged seismic activity during the Middle Miocene period. Shockwaves from powerful earthquakes compressed sandy sediments and cemented limestone materials into rounded masses known as trovantes. But what makes these stones appear to grow, move, and even reproduce? To answer that, scientists have studied their structure and behavior. Trovantes consist of a hard stone core surrounded by layers of sand or gravel. These unique formations can only develop in highly porous sandy deposits and sandstone bound together by water rich in calcium carbonate. Calcium carbonate is essential not only in forming trovantes, but also in enabling them to grow when exposed to rainwater. After heavy rainfall, trovantes absorb minerals from the water. These minerals then chemically interact with substances already present inside the stone, creating internal pressure. This pressure causes the stone to expand outward from its center, essentially growing and even appearing to reproduce at a rate of about 1.5 to 2 inches every 1,000 years. Trovantes typically have smooth surfaces with no sharp edges and can appear in cylindrical or spherical shapes. The irregular secretion of natural cement causes them to grow into inconsistent and unusual forms over time. Their size can vary greatly, from just a few millimeters to as large as about 33 feet. But beyond their structure and ability to grow, it is their apparent reproduction that makes trovantes truly unique. They also seem capable of moving from one place to another, and if that's not strange enough, they can develop root-like extensions and display growth rings visible when the stone is cut. Even today, scientists cannot fully explain these unusual features. From a visual standpoint, trovantes appear to combine characteristics of both plants and stones, making it unclear whether they should be classified as living organisms or not. But regardless of whether they are alive, these growing stones create a remarkable sight, one that you simply shouldn't miss if you ever visit Valsia County in Romania. 2,300-year-old temple reveals the secrets of a forgotten ancient Buddhist center. There are places that once stood at the heart of entire civilizations, only to be erased by time until no one remembers them anymore. And sometimes, it's only when layers of earth are peeled back that history begins to reappear, so clearly that it forces us to rethink everything we thought we knew. And believe it or not, a story like that has just unfolded in the Swat district of northwestern Pakistan, where archaeologists have discovered an ancient temple dating back about 2,300 years. The excavation took place in Bazira, an area within the town of Barakat in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, long referred to as the ancient world and traditions. Even the name suggests how important this place once was, but only when the ruins began to emerge did its true significance become clear. What makes this discovery remarkable is not just the temple's age, but the fact that it may be even older than many sites found in Taxila, one of the most famous centers of Buddhism in the region. Just imagine, a site older than places already considered the cradle of Buddhism. That alone speaks volumes about its historical value. During the excavation, archaeologists uncovered a statue of the Buddha standing about 13 feet tall, still relatively well preserved despite being more than 2 millennia old. In addition, they found traces of an ancient roadway, possibly the main road leading into the old city of Bazira, directly connected to its gates. These details suggest that this was once a thriving, well-planned urban area, not just an isolated religious site. According to Luca M. Olivieri, director of the MAIP Archaeological Mission, the foundation of the temple dates back to the Mauryan Empire, a period when Buddhism was rapidly spreading and gaining influence. He noted that this discovery is extremely significant because it demonstrates the existence of a new architectural technique within Gandharan Buddhist art, a style that blends Greek and Indian influences. Previously, this type of architecture had only been documented at a temple in Sirkap, but now the temple in Bazira stands as the oldest and most representative example of this style in Pakistan. It's almost like discovering an original version of a long-lost architectural tradition. But the significance doesn't stop there. Bazira was once part of the Gandhara civilization, a region that played a crucial role in spreading Buddhism throughout Central Asia. It was also the birthplace of many artistic symbols of Buddhism that we still recognize today. In other words, this was not just a stop along the way, it was a major center for cultural and religious exchange. Archaeological evidence also shows that Bazira welcomed Indo-Greek communities at a very early stage, particularly during the reign of Menander I Soter, a king well known for supporting Buddhism. This reflects a powerful cultural exchange between civilizations and helps explain why Buddhism flourished so rapidly in this region. From around the 3rd century BCE, Bazira had already become an important Buddhist center. By the 3rd to 4th century CE, it had reached its peak, but like many civilizations, it could not escape the destructive forces of nature. A powerful earthquake reduced the area to ruins during the Kushan Empire under rulers such as Kanishka and Huvishka, both strong supporters of Buddhism, and over time, everything faded into obscurity. Remains of a new human species discovered in Spain. A recent archaeological discovery in Spain is shaking the global scientific community, not only because of its age, which spans over 1 million years, but also because it reveals an entirely new chapter in the story of human evolution. Led by the Spanish National Research Center on Human Evolution, CNIH, an international research team has announced what they believe to be a missing piece of the puzzle, a previously unknown human species represented by a mysterious individual nicknamed Pink. Pink is not an official scientific name, but rather a nickname given by researchers to this unusual specimen, discovered in 2022 at the famous archaeological site of Atapuerca, located in the limestone mountains of Burgos province, Spain. The initial discovery consisted of only part of a jawbone and a cheekbone, yet these fragments are now rewriting the entire history of human presence in Europe. Using advanced dating techniques, the research team determined that Pink lived approximately 1.1 to 1.4 million years ago, a time frame that immediately captured the attention of anthropologists worldwide. What's surprising is that Pink's face appears narrow and flat, lacking the more modern features typically seen in ancient human species in Europe from the same period. This has left researchers facing a difficult question: who exactly was Pink? The remains were excavated from the same archaeological layer that contained numerous artifacts associated with Homo antecessor, an ancient human species that lived in Europe roughly 800,000 to 1.2 million years ago. However, when researchers reconstructed the facial structure and compared it to known species, they found that Pink more closely resembled Homo erectus, upright man, a species believed to be a direct ancestor of many modern human lineages and known to have lived in Africa and Asia over 2 million years ago. But the resemblance is not exact. Subtle yet important differences in facial bone structure indicate that Pink is neither Homo erectus nor Homo antecessor. This has led scientists to propose a bold hypothesis. Pink may belong to an entirely new human species, a forgotten evolutionary branch that may have reached Western Europe even earlier than Homo antecessor, and one that has never before been documented in the fossil record. Dr. Maria Martinon Torres, director of CNIAH and lead researcher on the project, suggests that Pink's ancestors may not have migrated from Africa via the Strait of Gibraltar, as traditional theories propose. Instead, they may have come from Eastern Europe, along a lesser-discussed route that is increasingly supported by archaeological evidence. Some findings indicate that human activity existed at the gateways to Europe as early as 2 million years ago, suggesting there was ample time for early migration waves to reach Western Europe much earlier than previously believed. At the site where Pink was discovered, archaeologists also found stone tools and animal bones bearing cut marks, clear evidence that early humans knew how to craft and use tools for hunting, butchering, and food preparation. Though primitive, these tools demonstrate a high level of adaptability to a warm, humid environment rich in resources. The discovery of Pink has been published in the prestigious scientific journal Nature, sparking widespread interest across the research community. And yet, the story is far from over. Excavations are still ongoing at Atapuerca, a site that may hold even more secrets about the species Pink represents. Could this be the missing link in our evolutionary journey? Or is it an entirely separate branch that once coexisted with other early human species, only to go extinct and fade into oblivion? Whatever the answer may be, one thing is clear: every bone fragment, every artifact uncovered is more than just fossil evidence. It is a whisper from the past, helping us listen to the very beginnings of the human story. Dear friends, over the years, archaeology has brought us countless surprises and mysteries, from ancient enigmatic temples and artifacts that suddenly resurface after centuries of being buried, to mysterious mummies, all of which seem to hide dark and fascinating rituals behind them. Among these discoveries are also eerie, almost supernatural details that archaeologists have had to confront throughout many years of exploration. So, out of all the discoveries we've talked about, which one impressed you the most? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to give ancient history a like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this video. For now, goodbye, and see you next time.